At that time, a book came out by Nicholas Kristof, a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist. It was called Half the Sky, and that title was an Asian proverb that spoke to at least half the sky being held up by women. And this book was filled with stories of women who were doing tremendous things. And one of those women in that book was Ruchira Gupta. She had founded APNIAP, an organization that helped women escape sex trafficking in India. And so I reached out to Ruchira, and I asked her, would media projects that tell your story be helpful? Would they help you with fundraising? Would they help you with training? Would they help you with recruiting? And she said, yes, it would. If you can make that happen, it would be a great service. And so I took that on as a personal project. In between my paying gigs, in between my vocational assignments in motion picture and television, I would look and research for opportunities and ways to get that sort of effort funded. So I got to work, and I approached people that had funded for-profit entertainment venues in the past and asked them if they were interested in funding something like this. Most of them were very intrigued, but most of them said no. A couple said, we might be, but it would be better if it was a not-for-profit organization. We could get a tax write-off and we could contribute in a variety of ways to help you pull this off. And so I formed Storm Warriors International back in those days, really as a personal platform or venue to give back in between my working profession jobs. So when I moved to Maine in 2010, I brought Storm Warriors with me, and we headquartered in Maine, but we stayed under the radar because this was not going to be a traditional not-for-profit organization in which we were raising money and cultivating donors, but rather it would be a platform by which I could give back as I had time in between my paying jobs to go help organizations that might have need if we could raise the funds. And so I went back to my fellow filmmakers and producers and underwriters, and I found a couple of them that were willing to support the APNIAP project. I got a few people that I knew to come together for discounted rates. We rented equipment, and we were able to pay for the airfare and the travel and the accommodations, and we went to India. But I want to admit something for a moment, that before it was time to go, this being the first trip that we had ever taken as Storm Warriors, I got cold feet just before it was time to go. Because I knew I was going to travel to some faraway places, into some very dangerous environments. And I'm a husband, and I'm a father of 4. And they were still young and quite dependent on me at the time. And I began to realize that I was going to be putting myself into a situation that did have risk. Even the risk of maybe not returning. It's still somewhat of a sacred memory for me, and it's not always easy to talk about. But I really faced the question of whether or not I could go. And in my own way of meditating and reflecting and even prayer, I simply made this statement. I said, I think it's wrong what's happening to these women. I would never perpetrate anything on them like this. And it shouldn't be happening, and they ought to be rescued. But I'm not sure I can go there. Because I have people who need me here, people who are depending upon me. And if I don't return, or if I come back in some way that I'm not able to continue to provide for them as I have been, is it fair to them? Is it fair to the ones you leave behind? I discovered it wasn't only compassion for those in need, but compassion for those already at my side that made the question a difficult one. And as I pondered this question, that inner voice spoke to me and said, well, what if it was your daughter? And I said, well, you know, if it was my daughter, there isn't a place on earth I wouldn't set my foot. I would go to the uttermost parts of this planet in search of her. If I felt for a moment she was suffering any indignities or horrors such as these women were suffering, I wouldn't hesitate. I would not be able to rest until I was able to find her and set her free. And that's when I realized they are our daughters. They are our sisters. They're our mothers. We have to realize they're not just labels. They're not just victims or survivors or topics or categories. They're real people in real crisis. So it's worth asking, what's it going to take before you're willing to risk your life and to apply your resources and your efforts towards the benefit and rescue of those in real need? I believe that in our heart of hearts, it's something we all aspire to do. I think it's part of what we're here to do. And at Storm Warriors, we hope to give you opportunity to find out where you might be most helpful, most needed,